Jesus didn't just use his words to teach his followers about the kingdom of God. He was always prepared to follow up with his actions or his deeds. Jesus also taught by doing. When he went down to the Jordan River to be baptized, he taught about the washing away of the old to be empowered for the new. When he healed the sick and the blind and called the children to himself after they'd been previously sent away by the disciples, he pointed to the value of all people, the young and the old, the rich and the poor, the sick and the healthy. His actions showed God's love for all.
So here I am at the Ginosar Boat Museum. Why a boat museum and why would we be here? Well, of course, it's at the Sea of Galilee, and in 1986, this amazing boat was recovered from the lake. But the real story is what lies behind this boat. For in a boat like this, so many of the stories of Jesus can be told. The call of Jesus was to disciples where they were asked to leave their boats, their nets, and the hired staff that they got. He came to them, you remember, skilled fishermen, to help them when they'd failed to catch fish. And then there was a storm at sea and Jesus was asleep, we're told in Mark's Gospel, with his head on a pillow. And then there's that fantastic walking on the water where Jesus comes to disciples and he calls Peter out onto the water. But of course, Peter took his eyes off Jesus and sank. Right from the beginning of my Christian life, I've believed it's all about faith and action, word and deed, something that's real and makes all the difference. And when I stand by this boat, so many of these stories were exactly that.
Jesus was not one to let circumstances restrict him from showing God's love and compassion to people. In fact, he often used difficult moments to show the extent of God's love for all. Here at the Church of the Multiplication, pilgrims come from all around the world to remind themselves of how Jesus took loaves and fishes to feed a large crowd of people. There are, in point of fact, 2 instances that we know of where Jesus is reported to have fed large crowds of people. The multiplication of the loaves and fishes is one example of the word and deed ministry of Jesus, which took place in a remote location.
The disciples are gathering together and they're telling what they've achieved, the stories they've told, the things that they've seen, and they're sharing those stories as any group of friends would, but significantly as a group of friends who are following Jesus. The crowds were keeping them busy. They were coming and going, making requests, wanted to hear stories, and wanted to be very much part and near this new group of people that was making such an impression upon the area. Jesus knew that they really hadn't had some food. They'd been so busy. He said to them, let's go to a quiet place. Now, at the same time, the crowd that had been part of all that was happening with the disciples saw what they were doing. It's as if the news went from one to another saying, let's go and see where he's going. And we're told in the scriptures that they ran, and they outran the boat, so that when Jesus got off the boat, the truth was that they were there ready to greet him. Jesus got off the boat and looked at this crowd before him. He realized that these people were so eager to listen to what he got to say, so eager to hear this new teaching, that they would run in the heat to go and be beside him. It was a remote place, no shops nearby. It was getting late in the day, they'd nothing to eat, and so they go and they make a request of Jesus as to what they should do. And Jesus then says, you feed them. What a statement that was. You feed them? Well, that's the last thing that they could do. They had so little resources of themselves. And so they go off to look at what the resources were. And there are 2 things that we notice. Firstly, in John's Gospel, it tells us that they say a little lad. In fact, Andrew finds a little lad, a little boy, who's got to offer what he has. And what he offers is 5 loaves and 2 fishes. That's all he had, and that's what he was able to offer. Now, very clear instructions were given to the disciples to arrange everybody into groups, and the disciples served the food that Jesus blessed, reminding us of how he would bless meals so often in the story of the Christian faith. And the food was taken out, and it was impossible to imagine such a multiplication. From 5 loaves and 2 fishes, such a great crowd was fed. And here's the bottom line. When it was all over, there were 12 basketfuls left over. Now, you don't expect me to be able to easily explain that. All I know is this. It's interesting that it's recorded in all 4 Gospels and that it becomes such an important part of the stories of Jesus. I think the overriding message is this, that Jesus Christ is able to take whatever it is we offer and do far more abundantly over and above anything we can imagine by the use of his power and his grace.
By taking the bread and fish and feeding the large crowd, Jesus let his actions speak of God's love, provision, and compassion.